Ready, camera, action. Oh, that's cut, right? No, slam it. Okay, all right. So we're going to call this meeting to order. Well, I moved the table up if you want to sit over there. But, okay. Not. Sorry to be distracted, but I went and saw the World Championships, Eugene, and
There's one down there.
my son who ran track in college and but you reminded me of a story. So why don't we start with
Race, there won't be any sun.
so why don't we start with introductions? I'm Tom Peterson, chair of the BAC.
I'm Kara Toronto, co-chair of the BAC. I say like a question,
No, you are. You
but
are.
I am.
Greg DiLoretto, member of the BAC.
Norm Dowdy, member of the BAC.
I'm Don Wolf, Chief Technology Officer for Dan Young, Chief of Research.
Do you want to introduce our guests? Or?
We can certainly, yes, we don't have very many, so why don't we?
Yeah.
I'm Pat Tom, new volunteer.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's so.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry, Mia, I didn't.
He's an intern for OSM.
All right.
My hearing's not what it used to be.
Mine either.
David May, Communications Manager for the Long Program.
Jared Henderson, program support. OSM.
Jonathan Wan, data analyst.
Great, thank you. So it doesn't appear that we have anyone from the public here. Or do we have any remote public comment? Or are we doing that?
We did allow people to send in remote public comment. We did not receive.
Okay,
If we get any after the meeting, of course, we will share it with you as we receive.
okay. So, Marina, take it away.
All right, we'll go with our usual explanatory slide about our business data. But this is pretty data from this investigation is based on invoices received, not under contract amounts. That information is uploaded monthly, but it really depends on prime contractors entering accurate data into the system. There's often a delay between the payment and when the data gets entered and when it gets confirmed. So that it can lag by 1 or 2 months. And we do, even if we get data long after the contract has been closed, we will need to update it in the systems.
I mean, just out of curiosity, it doesn't have the ability to kind of put like what they were thinking the numbers would be. In other words, you know how you have a budget plan or contracts. PeopleSoft doesn't allow that kind of input of data.
E2G, which is the system that we use, is totally based on payments.
Payment only. So it doesn't have the ability to, for the contractor to say, this was our plan. That's too bad, because that would have been useful.
Yeah, and it is something that we're going to continue to look at, whether we can collect that data in a different way.
Yeah.
That effort has been waiting for our staffers who will formally enter this later. Just yes.
Okay. All right, just curious.
Okay. So we'll right into the bond program administration. A couple things to note on equity or business equity. The email to amount continues to go up. So we're getting closer to But of course, our annual is only 12 months. Figure is over 80%. And our apprenticeship, work percentage side of things, we remain at 24%. 20%, so we're doing that. Any questions on that before we go on to the budget? From the budget side of things, what you're going to see here first is the 2012 program. Primarily what you're going to see, grant field project that the project is primarily done is open for use, but there are some lead items that we are waiting on. This is something that's a trend here on a lot of our projects over the next couple months because we continue to identify supply chain delays due to pandemic and inflation, I'm guessing at this point. So we do have a couple things that are not there yet. Probably the notable things are switch order, some backup lighting, a little bit of safety things, I guess, just relatively minor. We're expecting most of them to get completed in the fall. From a budget perspective, we are still reconciling all of our funds between eBuilder and PeopleSoft. PeopleSoft being the system partner for the district, eBuilder, of course, is our management software. So as we're going through this program, we have done reconciliations on the expenditures, but we're reconciling the site. And it is a lengthy process because it's a talk about. So you're going to continue to see things show up there, and they may vary slightly, but we're still in that general range of
So that's about where we were last time.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. On the 2017 program, just to note that MPG building, we will continue to see expenditures related to 2017 funds that are prior year expenditures. We'll discuss finance with those 2020 funds. That's really a financial question, a Senate question. So they're going to continue to show up until the decisions we will let you know. The remainder of the MPG is going to be on the 2020 program spreadsheet, which we'll see in the next slide. Benson will continue to show a portion of it that's funded by 2017 funds here. What is probably of note, Benson Swings, which is the second line on that, they are complete. We will be shifting those funds over to Benson proper. Of course, Benson's budget as a whole, including the swings, so that money just goes right back to the project that is doesn't matter to anything that are dedicated to this. Another thing of note for Benson, and I put this under the notes, it's not showing up yet in the numbers, but we did receive an SRJP grant for Benson. $2.5 million. That was the one we received for this last grant round. And we have shifted that funding into Benson. That is not in addition to the budget. The budget stays the same, the funding goes in, and what comes out is 2017 program funding that goes back to the program for contingencies. So that will show up on the next report out in September. Lincoln, you probably noticed that there's a healthy number under budget on Lincoln. They are under budget at the end of phase one. We are working through that, how much exactly they're willing to consider no longer theirs, shall we say, but they're willing to give up. They do still have to continue phase two. We want to make sure that they have enough funding in there to address any potential risks associated with phase two. So we are talking through that amount. We will be sharing that with our internal steering committee to talk about whether there are things that were cut from the projects early on due to budget concerns that might want to be added in something or whether there's some other aspect of Lincoln. So we'll have that internal discussion before we bring that to the PAC, but that is coming in August.
So, quick question, back on Benson, it's split between 2017, 2020, so the actual costs, the additional encumbered, are those just proportional?
2017. So the additional encumbered, you'll see an amount here, you'll see another amount in 2020, and the two together make up the additional number.
I'm assuming in our next meeting, we'll focus on modernization.
Yes,
We'll see a
you will see the whole project
Benson one
stacks
that
updated,
combines them, so you can kind of see it from a
everything.
total budget perspective.
Yep.
I have a question about the surplus funds on the 217. So obviously, the Lincoln, what you say makes sense. Let's not give it up if there's some things we cut out. And I suspect there may be a little bit of that McDaniel too.
With McDaniel, yes, we are still trying to, we have one follow-up project related to getting the deals that we are still figuring out what the cost of that is going to be. So the amount that you see as estimated completion may change slightly. We do know that some will be coming back. Right now, that's roughly 2 million, but it could be more or less.
So I guess what I'm getting at is at some point, there'll be some surplus likely still. So that then all goes to Benson or or does it go to health and safety or what's the plan for any surplus there?
You know, I think that's a really good question. I definitely think it's going to be one of the discussion topics as we talk through what happens with the Lincoln funds in particular.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that we're really ready to say, here's a chunk of money, let's dedicate it.
I understand that, yeah.
There are some things that we need to figure out still with the health and safety program as well. Some additional things we'd like to fund through
Yeah.
health and safety. And we have, in addition to that, within health and safety, we have funds that we could reallocate from one category within health and safety to another. And so that is right now our priority is to sort of stay within the 2017 program and within health and safety and figure out what we're doing with those first before we then come back and say what's available in 2017.
Okay.
Could it be swept into a contingency fund? Because there's,
No, the health and safety, whatever is.
no, I'm just talking about the general, if there's some funds
Yes,
under.
as we get done with projects, so as we complete the Kellogg and we move out whatever is remaining, whether it's 141,000 or somewhere, that gets moved into the 2017 program contingency. So that is where those funds go back to.
2017 contingency can be spent on current projects.
2017 contingency can be spent on things that are compensable under the 2017.
But it's theoretically, since Benson is over, you're gonna spend any surplus funds on Benson as opposed to spending 2020 money, right?
That is an option, but
Yeah.
we are, at this point, we are split between 2017 and 2020.
No, I understand, but if I heard you correctly, you can't spend 2017 bond money on things that were identified as 2017. So since Benson is, and we know it's short, logically it would make sense to spend it, whatever's left on Benson, so you don't have to touch the 2020 and it gives you freedom in the 2020 for other things.
I agree that that is a good logical option.
But-
I don't think it's going to be the only option.
Okay.
Leadership members.
Okay,
So I think that there will probably be, as I said, a robust discussion.
okay.
If 2017 has additional funding need, I think that is allocated.
It'll be an interesting conversation. I'll be around to hear it, but,
It will be an interesting conversation and we will invite you to be part of it.
oh,
Yes.
thanks. All right, sorry, I'll be quiet.
Are there any questions specific to 2017? This is primarily budget. I did leave a couple notes in the notes section just some status updates, but if you have any other questions about 2017 projects.
Well, we went through the health and safety last time, so.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we were talking about modernizations.
Yeah.
ACs will get.
Okay, I'm good. Anyone else?
Just a note on 2025, you'll see, conference at Jefferson, the Jefferson Modernization Project, that is architecture and engineering services. We, as of the time, so actuals, but the work is invoices. And we are moving forward with that project. Another thing of note on 2020, the infrastructure projects, you'll see that we spent 17.6 million to date. I think the interesting number is actually the next one over, the additional number. We have 27 million encumbered. The bulk of that is actually summer projects for this summer. So construction.
Busy summer.
It's an incredibly busy summer. We are probably not going to see a big change in the actuals. We'll see some change in the actuals for the next report out, but probably we're going to see all of it is the 2 months after. So in November, we receive
You mind if we move again?
Y'all can slide down.
No, we can move back.
We gotta be with Mike.
I was wrong. Back was better. No, not for
So
Karen.
now I took off for my
Let's
sunglasses.
go out in the parking lot.
Any architects in this project here?
I'll scare
Need
you.
window blinds. Need some motorized blinds. Spend some of that savings.
Some of that 6 million left.
Yeah. Motorized blinds.
I don't even need 6 months.
Okay, I think we're back.
Okay. Our team has indicated some concerns about budget due to and also insurance. Our Rolls-Royce insurance in particular has quadrupled.
Yep.
Which is a particularly challenging for our bigger projects. So we also found it very difficult to get builders risk insurance. So that plays into pricing as well. So they are noting some concerns. We are going to be sitting down and talk through those concerns, but I just wanted to be, fully transparent.
Understandable.
At the next PAC meeting, I have asked them to make sure that they discuss any concerns they have as well with the institution.
Okay.
That'll help.
2020,
See early.
Yeah.
general note, we're continuing to see issues with supply chain.
Yeah.
The main materials, it changes from month to month what those actual materials are that are being made. We have found ourselves in the position of having a contractor who's got multiple projects using materials from one project for another project. So we can use one of them this summer as opposed to having both remain unfinished at the end of the summer. So there are definitely challenges out there. Cost issues, of course, everybody's seeing the inflation figures. Where we stand right now for this year is we are on track for 15% construction inflation.
And I remember the hard time we were giving you about your inflation numbers back when we.
It's very challenging. It's challenging for everyone. We're not the only ones that are feeling it. We are continuing to recruit and hire new staff. the economic we have to complete for the 2020 bond in particular. There's a lot out there. We will make sure that our staff are not working on 24-hour days. So we continue to recruit project managers. A couple of recent changes in our personnel. We have a senior project manager who has taken on a director of construction role. So Armin Milazzo, who is our senior PM for Benson, is taking on a DOC role, but he's doing it as part-time. So he will be, we call a kind of a supervising project manager. He's going to continue to manage Benson. He has a team and a lot of experience, and they're working well together. So he's going to take on some limited director role duties as well. Beyond that, we hired Haftar back here as our new certified business program manager. We're incredibly excited. We keep throwing a lot of stuff at him, as in you need to learn all of this now as quickly as possible and start working. But we do have a lot of ideas and things we'd like to complete as part of the certified business program. And he is starting to dig into those things and asking questions. Last notes, and then I will let it move on to our presentation tonight. Lincoln is having a grand opening ceremony September 17th at 10 a.m.
Really?
But before we ever get to the grand opening ceremony, it's a busy month for MPG is doing a groundbreaking ceremony on September 10th at 11. So if you missed the groundbreaking on September 10th, you can come to the grand opening on the 17th.
At what time did you say?
On the 17th is at 10.
10 o'clock.
And on the 10th is at 11. And we are happy to send you invites to both of those so we have them. We are going to be presenting curriculum and technology updates for the 2020 bond tonight. We are going to start with curriculum. We have Mary Leader here, and Mary, I have your presentation. You just let me know.
Perfect. Sounds great. Sorry for being a little late. I just got back from Sun River. Very non-stressful drive. I was with my husband with my 2-year-old and 5-year-old. It took 4.5 hours.
Oh, well, lovely.
2-year-old didn't nap, so you know how that goes.
It's nice to, I think it's the first time we've met you in person.
Oh, yeah, I know. You know what people always say about me is that I'm really tall. When I stand up, that's what everyone says is the first thing they notice about me. Because you can't see on
Yeah.
but nice to meet everybody in person.
Yes.
Obviously, I know some of you, but just to dive right in, we've been really busy with curriculum. We have this year, or our school year, so the end of our school year in June, when we traditionally buy a lot of our curriculum for the next fall. Because we do a lot of professional development over the summer with our teachers, so we've obviously had a big bump since January. And this was also a year where we did most of our curriculum adoptions, so we really rolled it out. I'll talk about the individual adoptions later. And in our previous conversations, I know we talked about bond funding, but a lot of our items not being bond compensable. So we've been able to rely on general funds for that, as well as ESSER funds have really been able to kind of boost that work. And then working obviously with our finance department for the subsequent years as well. ESSER fund was ESSER free. I don't think there's an ESSER 4 coming our way. So we're relying on kind of building out that budget in the future to support our adoptions continuing on. Again, that number has increased. And very similar to construction, we have seen a lot of inflation with the cost of our curriculum. We have a lot of materials and goods that are being shipped in, printing. All of those things have led to an increase in costs. And especially our adoptions, like our K through 5 language arts adoption, which I'll talk about again a little bit later. It's very material heavy. So all of those shipping costs, the cost of the materials have cost a lot. Our digital licenses are not as bad because it's obviously digital, but all of that has kind of contributed to this. Luckily or unluckily, because in the beginning, we had wanted to spend some of the bond money on items that ended up not being bond compensable, so we're able to shift that in and kind of buffer that room for our items that have increased in cost. So we're feeling pretty confident. The only cautionary we have is with the schedule, and the only reason why I put that there is because the original scope or the original schedule, when he had presented, I think we presented March 2021, and then, well, twice since then, I guess, but we have switched around our schedule, but we have switched around our schedule for a very good reason. And so I'll talk about that on the next slide. So again, we are kind of in the heart of it. We haven't had many changes since January in what we're looking at. But to me, this is kind of it's a great example if you dive into it, but I kind of have another slide that will go, it's a little bit easier for me to read as well. Next slide. So just going into the schedule and scope history, and obviously I'm living in the future because I meant to put November 2020. When the original bond language passed, it did come with a comprehensive timeline for when we are going to adopt all the materials. And I think a lot of that, and I wasn't part of that original, I was kind of on after, was because we were still kind of figuring out where our priorities are, where we need to go. You know, I know in previous presentations I've talked about, you know, it's been 15, 10, 20 years since we adopted my materials, and now having this funding, we really need to strategically prioritize that. And so there wasn't really a schedule laid out, and so we went and talked to a lot of our program administrators and content experts to determine kind of the next. So again, this was presented first in March 2021, and a lot of it was, so the first column, the adoption school year is really the year kind of we plan for the adoption, the year that we field test materials, we get community review, we evaluate materials, and then we ultimately select materials to go with. So for that first year, school year 2021, we focused on adoption areas that we already kind of had begun work around. Kind of that low-hanging fruit that we know we had immediate needs in. So KV mathematics, I know I talked about this last time. We had a district math network that was really focusing on instructional materials, so we engaged them to adopt materials. Foundational skills, we had already adopted some materials around kindergarten and first grade, expanding on that. We didn't have a Spanish dual language curriculum, so that was huge, and we needed that. We were relying on either teacher-made materials or translation of language arts materials from English to Spanish, which is not wonderful for our DLI students because there's a lot of nuances and we want authentic materials. So, and then 6th through 8 science and climate change, climate justice, both the same kind of, we already had a lot of materials going for that. We had a lot of teachers involved in the process, so we wanted to start with those. And so that really hasn't changed since March 2021. And then for the subsequent years, we spaced it out based on kind of needs, where individual teams were at as well. We had some teams that were still building, so we have generally what we have for our, when I refer to teams, because I know it varies for everybody, is generally a program administrator or a director that oversees, let's say, 6 through 8 language arts. And then underneath them, they have teachers on special assignment, which are teachers that they're on special assignments. They're still considered part of our PAT union, but they actually support the district level. And so that's kind of where the teams are at, and we're building out. And then in summer of 2021, we met with Oregon Department of Education, and in previous years, we have not been in compliance with Division 22, which is basically the baseline of education that all students are expected to receive in the state of Oregon. And part of that also involves instructional materials. So they need to have a baseline of robust standards-based, well, not necessarily standards-based, but robust instructional materials. So we met with them, and we came up with a plan based on the state's adoption timeline, as well as our district needs to develop this updated timeline. So that was last summer at about this time. And I'm glad to say we're on track. So we've been able to complete the adoption school year 2021, obviously, and then this year we adopted materials in 6 through 12 math, K through 12 language arts, world languages, which as a district, I came in and I didn't understand how many world languages and continuing dual language immersion programs that we have, but it is extremely robust. So
Curious how
emotional
many?
learning.
I'm curious, how many do you have?
So let's see, for dual language immersion, we have Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, but they all continue throughout high school, which, yeah. And then in addition to that, we have world languages of like German,
Right.
sign language, Spanish, French, Japanese, and then the nuances in that are also like advanced placements. So there's certain curriculum for that and IB, and so it gets even. It's just extremely robust. So we've been able to kind of really delve into that, which is great, and really provide robust materials around that. And then K through 12 health and PE, we've been able to work a lot there. And then our subsequent schedule, next year, the largest one is going to be K through 12 social sciences, which for Oregon looks a little bit different. So it's most likely going to be kind of a package of materials that we use with our students because we want to focus on local, culturally relevant materials as well as national materials. But again, this was kind of our largest year because we tackled really robust subjects and also the subjects that are on the board goals for education, which are K through 12 mathematics and K through 12 language arts. The next slide. I'm not going to read out all the names of the curriculum. I can tell you everything you wanted to know about them though. But all of them are extremely robust, culturally relevant. They also are, what I love about curriculum nowadays, it's not the typical textbook, but like the materials that are available online can go so far, but then you also have like classroom materials. And then obviously K through 5 is a bit more kind of physical materials. But then as you get into 6-12, just the amazing amount of robust. They have, Writable, which is the system for 6 through 12 language arts, which basically it helps kind of fix your, it's not spell check. I don't even know how to describe it. It's even more than that. It's basically like typing your materials and telling you what.
Grammar check.
Grammar check, but it's like more than that. I don't know. It's this really cool system. And then we have another program that it does plagiarism at the same time. So it's like, don't plagiarize, or like, this is how you say. But just the amazing amount of things that are coming along with it nowadays.
Okay.
And they're all highly rated on EdReports, which is one of our baseline nationally renowned. It basically evaluates all of the curriculum hitting in regards to the points. So all of them are the highest rated, which is pretty hard to get. And obviously we engaged a lot of teachers in this process. I was going through my field test list for all of these, and it was I don't know, at least 300, 400 teachers for all of these that we engaged in the process. And we're going to continue that wonderful work. We also executed professional development in June. I think there was 520 plus K through 5 teachers that attended that PD, and then an additional 300 or so grade 6 through 12 teachers. And then we're repeating that PD actually next week. And we're anticipating another probably 500 out of our 1,300 K through 5 educators to attend. And then additionally, we run another 500 6 through 12 educators. I don't know why 6 through 12 educators prefer to come in August, so we're always a little bit heavier there. And then repeat PDA days in September, so we're making sure we're capturing all of our audience. But it's quite a load, and it's great.
How many staff people are in the curriculum?
So our department, Office of Teaching and Learning, it varies. Probably around 100 plus. It just depends on if we can rearrange. Yeah, because there's so many different departments, and then each department has an admin lead, and then, well, generally there's a senior director and an admin lead, and then 5 or 6 teachers on special assignment. because in addition, it's not just adopting curriculum, they go out and they coach teachers, so that's the primary role of these individuals, is to go out to classrooms, coach teachers on pedagogy and also how to utilize the materials and kind of problem solve with teachers, so that's their primary role, and that's why it's such a large department. This is an add-on to their job, a good add-on, but it's still an add-on. Concerns, again, I talked about inflation. We are, obviously having effects of inflation, but we're able to adjust those unused funds into that. And then also general fund budget cuts too. I talked about how we're working with the Department of Finance to plan out for subsequent years, but we are going to face a budget cliff as a district. So making sure that we are able to properly support our teachers and properly purchase the materials. And then continuing with robust professional development. Everybody has different opinions about curriculum. Some teachers are, K-5 is generally very supportive of the standardized curriculum. For educators that have, and to no fault of their own, have developed a lot of their own curriculum internally because nothing's been available. They want to continue to use that in support of our curriculum. And providing professional development around it. So it's all just a balance of not wasting the materials that they already have and providing professional development and providing it in a way that works for them. We can't ask teachers to come, extra days a week from 4:30 to 6:30 if they've got kids. So how can we make sure that that's available to them in a way that they can access it? Okay. Questions?
I have a quick question. I'm putting my engineering project manager hat on you. So, regarding the budget, I noticed the estimated completion is the same as your budget, and so normally we're used to seeing an estimate that's based on what we really think it's going to be, and you also have this unique situation where you've got funds available from other sources as needed. So the question is, based on what you're seeing with inflation and all these other things, are you going to be able to deliver it within the 71, or you're not in a position where you would know that yet?
I do anticipate that number going up from
Okay.
71. With our current adoptions, until we really know the full scope of it, it's hard to put a price tag on that number. So every curriculum costs a different amount, and every amount of consumables with it does. So I was thinking about that, and I am budgeting out for that. And so I do anticipate, now that we're starting our second to last round, that number will be different than what we have, but I'll have more.
So the question then becomes is for the non-compensable bond, obviously the district's on the hook, but for stuff that is compensable, is there risk that the 53 million, which is the bond funding, that there could be a need for more funding out of the bond to meet the needs?
Use more funding. So the thing about the curriculum is that there's generally, so for example, I'm going to go K through 5. So I'm budgeting so we have enough money for the rest of ours, but for K through 5 language arts, we have, you could buy full classroom sets of novels for kids, and that was about $3 million, or you could buy like half sets, which is what the vendor recommends. Not ideal for a classroom, but that's about $1 million. So we ended up purchasing the lesser amount just to make sure that we have funding for subsequent years. So there is flexibility in what you purchase. Again, if there's an extra $20 million lying around, we could definitely spend that into something.
Yeah.
Again, so we're making it work, and I don't anticipate going over that number unless sometime magically.
So I guess the question then was the language pretty specific about what the cap was on curriculum in the 2020 bond, or is there some flexibility?
I like that question.
Maybe.
It's good. I don't know offhand. I would look at the language. I think generally it's broad and allows.
So,
but I want to fresh.
yeah, because it begs the question, it's like, well, they're experiencing the same thing that the construction folks are experiencing. You have contingency of that, but it doesn't appear that we have contingency per se for the curriculum.
Well, we do have,
It's a program.
but we had 14 million. That's not anymore, I guess. See that?
So that did include contingency within the number that was given, the same with technology as well. That doesn't mean there could be some discussion program contingency and use of it at some point in the future. But at the time, the intent was that the number that they provided already had their contingency.
Yeah, okay.
So what happened to the climate change? Did it just get spread throughout these other categories? You didn't really buy climate change books, you bought books that.
So it did, so a good deal that, so we had, I'm not gonna delve to it, I can talk about it, we had a climate change committee that had worked to fulfill a board goal, which really established a protocol, we didn't talk much about curriculum, and then we had our lead for that lead, and then it ended up shifting to kind of more of a political role. So that ended up spreading out to both social sciences, or social sciences, climate justice work, that we're gonna see a lot into our next year adoptions, along with our K-5 science, 6-8 science, and 9-12. So it did spread out rather than having.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? No?
So, well, I guess I have one, but it doesn't really pertain to us. So are you doing like a sinking fund? So I mean, a lot of your books weren't replaced, they were old, and so this is going to happen again, right? And so how do you stay current with it, or so that you can
So
get
our adoption cycles are every 7 years, and so I already kind of put a little bug in Marina's ear. I'm like, oh, the next bond that comes up, how can we get on
Next
it? It would be ideal having funding to be able to pay for this, because our theoretical adoption cycles are going to be every 7 years, but it's, again, we're trying to space them out so that if you don't have a bond, then at least we're able to support them that way. I should also say that one other, I think it's pretty cool because it was a logistics nightmare, so I'm glad it all got done, is that we were able to recycle all of our K-5 language arts textbooks. So we found a textbook recycler in Vancouver, which is apparently a pretty rare thing to have one, and so we coordinated the removal of all of that over the summer rather than ending up in the dumpster.
Oh,
And they were all recycled, which is awesome. I plan to continue with it, even though they're just fun.
that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
What I did is I was trying to find the dumpster, and my lady wasn't on, so I drove up to Chavez, I drove down to Woodstock, and I was like, where's the dumpster at? The dumpsters are here.
So the new curriculum, how much is digital and how much is like hard copy?
It depends. So really when we get through, so I would say K-5 is pretty student workbook heavy. So you probably have like one student workbook about that thick per grade level, and then also like a student. So student workbooks, those consumable supplies that they write in, and then they'll have like a student textbook, and then a teacher guide will have that too. And then when you get through 6 through 12, a lot of our 6 through 12 doesn't even have like student workbooks attached to it. It's just, they do everything online. They might have a textbook. They definitely have a teacher guide because teachers love paper. Most teachers, they definitely have a printable teacher guide that they have. But everything's also available online, so it's not one or the other. So anything that you have in that paper form is also available online and
And if I could, I just want to go back to Greg's question and comment about this is going to happen again, right? And we've had this conversation a little bit outside of this. It's the same situation that technology is.
Yeah.
And so it's relevant. So I'm going to jump in here for this because what we're currently doing is also keeping a list. There were some things we intentionally didn't ask for in this bond because of the was going to be too big. So like, here's our bond 2025 ask that but there's also that whole conversation. We're in a situation around the curriculum right now because we haven't operationally invested. And we're in a situation where we are with technology where we haven't operationally invested in that historically as a school district. So having a new CFO, and I know Dan's had these conversations with Roberto, I'm having these conversations with
I'm having
Roberto.
conversations.
How do we figure out, because the capital bond is a capital bond, rules in the state of Oregon are very specific. And well, so is a capital bond place for some expenses we're making? How can we shift that? And how can we get the operational expenses back in operations? So it's a great question. It's not going to be solved probably by the next bond, but it's one that we are working on. It seems to try to address so their job can remain focused, and we can have actually the consistent funding and not have to kind of wonder and hope what might make it into a package.
Like Chromebooks, the students, what grade level does that go down to?
Well, it goes all the way down to PK, the take-home 1-to-1, and that's part of my presentation. So I risked jumping ahead a little bit, but it was relevant because
Yeah.
I'm in the same struggles, and it's the same.
So I mean, you have the same thing with the facilities. They got to be maintained properly as well, and that was a problem in the past.
Otherwise, we're going to find
100 years from now,
technology,
new BAC.
20 years of technical debt that we just prepared.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for? I'm really impressed with you and your staff and how you've been able to deliver this program. That's really a tremendous achievement. So
Thank you. And OSM has been great. They are wonderful when it comes to, hey, I got the last minute stuff. And I know they sometimes probably are like, oh, but no, they're wonderful. And they've been a great support in getting everything to purchasing, contracting, and helping me with everything.
Yeah.
And I can't say enough about that.
well, it was a very ambitious program, and and when you throw in trying to educate all the teachers on top of it, that's a big time effort. So
It's a lot.
yeah, good job.
We're the first students, right?
Huh?
We're the
Absolutely.
first students. They should
Yeah,
be-
no. It's I mean, I'm just thinking,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's exciting. I think. Thank you for sharing.
At home to
Yeah.
Sure, me too.
Just kidding. It's like being the last speaker of I'm between you and air conditioning.
Yeah, that's
So, this is our, so moving into technology. This is what standard budget report right here. And I'm just going to call out really right off the bat is in all four areas, we are in cautionary phase, right? So in scope budgets, we have put ourselves in a cautionary mode. And the reason is this, it's very simple, and I'm being really conservative by putting this there. I'm not concerned, well, let me say this a different way. I don't expect us to run over budget of what has been allocated in our portion of the bond. We have enough contingency built in. But what has happened as we got into the classroom modernization phase, we hit a situation with all of these old buildings. We were going in and putting in whiteboards, and we did our first couple of pilot schools. And what happened was we were putting in projection and whiteboards over existing chalkboards, and it wasn't looking right. And in consultation with OSM and facilities, it was like, this is not the look we wanted to have in a finished product for a bond-related product. So we've spent a lot of time going back and forth and redesigning our process, but it means we've got to go back in, take all of the existing material down, which is blackboard, which means there's asbestos, and it creates a whole other little construction project with this. So we're working with OSM and facilities. There's an RFP out there right now for a contractor that can handle all of this to bring in an environmental specialist, asbestos abatement, and then a minor contractor to kind of rebuild those walls for us, so that with our current contractors that we have on a contract to go in and hang whiteboards in a manner that is fitting of the public schools bond program. So when people walk in, it looks professional. It doesn't look like it was slapped up or anything. But it's created an issue that right now we don't have those other contracts in place, so we can't forecast out. And it slowed us down. So the scope there is creeped. So that's again why it's cautionary scope. It slowed our schedule down. And I can't provide an accurate or even a reasonable estimate and forecast until we get to our first couple sites and figure out what those construction efforts are going to cost and see how far we're going to have to dip into to our contingency. So that's why you're seeing those three. My assumption, if based on how much we have there, is once we get the first couple sites done, everything but scheduled. We're going to be a little bit longer on the classroom modernization than the 25 we're anticipating will run a little bit into 2026 to get all of this complete. We'll see if they can pick up the pace or not, but that's where we were all having a discussion. But I wanted to call it out. I wanted to be conservative so you could be paying attention
Sure.
and asking the right questions and being transparent.
So Marina, why don't they have a separate why did they fold the contingent? Why did they fold the contingency into each line, into each thing rather than having a separate line for
We
contingency?
marked it separate. It's in the program administration. That's where all
Oh, okay.
contingencies are.
All right, that's good. Thank you. Sorry.
So,
General budget question, are you seeing escalation of costs, like we're seeing construction materials and everything else?
We're seeing some. We haven't seen the first few sites. We've only gotten through 4 sites where we've gone out to bid and got contractors to work, and now we're at a little bit of a standstill as we get this second RFP out there executed so we can do this asbestos abatement and reconstruction. So I don't have a whole lot of historical reference points to see, but our material costs only that because the 4 we've got, we haven't completed them.
Computers, projectors, all that stuff with chips in them?
Yes, it's remained fairly consistent, but we're anticipating on the consumer-related items, those items that we put in classrooms, fairly consistent. The items that we put in the back end for infrastructure, that has gone up. Fortunately, we bought almost all of our wireless access points ahead of time. We bought all of our projectors ahead of time. So those costs remain fairly fixed and stable. When we look at Cisco switches that we're going to buy a batch of those, they've said their prices are going to go way up. We may consider a different product line at that point if it's going to be so absorbent that our contingency can.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tom.
So in the classroom modernizations, was there budget beyond just the technology site to deal with the physical modifications that need to be done? Or was that kind of a miss?
This additional scope of having to go in and pull out the blackboards,
Right.
figure out the asbestos, that was not ever planned for or accounted for. So that's all going to come out of contingency. There was construction in the classroom modernization project
Okay,
in the hanging of the projector and the entertainment wireless access point that was accounted for, but not as additional scope. That's why it's in the
Okay.
cautionary phase until we can get to the
So-
utilizations.
so unfortunately, you're spending higher contingency on remodeling as opposed to technology.
But it's the remodel then to support it.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I understand. I'm just,
Unless you can get it from some other construction.
you know, we'll see what happens. But I mean, that's also the beautiful thing. This is, it's the 2020 bond. It's a very large bond effort. It all rolls up into one, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be, so.
so just to refresh my memory, the modernization is throughout the entire district, every classroom.
That is correct. Yeah, let's jump into, because I've got a very, last time we were together, how are we going to follow in this one, because it's not a capital project, but it's a big project that you're doing what was said that the voters think you're going to do, because there won't be a big, beautiful building that you want to see. It's still not long. So, brief overview, we had 4 main projects, device refresh, which is almost completely done. It's a 1-to-1 project. There's been a little bit of scope creep on that, so I'm going to get into each one of those elements here. Classroom text standardization or classroom modernization is that project. Infrastructure and security upgrades. ERP organizational readiness. It's not an ERP replacement. I wish I could come this far in your budget on an ERP replacement, but I will talk about that. And then we have our.
Maybe explain what these are
I'm
like.
going to, you will get much more detail as we go through. These are broad buckets.
ERP, really big deal.
Is that what it stands for?
On this is
Brutal. They're brutal. Yeah.
happened to each one of these projects. So the device refresh, when we ordered them, we ordered for 1-to-1 in a single time frame, and oddly, there's been breakage, there's been lost Chromebooks, and there's been students that have come into the district that we have to account for. So we had to make another order, an additional 10,000 Chromebooks that we believe are going to get us to either the next large purchase or next large lease of 1-to-1. We are also instituting a few things, a self-insurance policy, so that we have some funds that are being created over the next few years to help with that. We added some support staff to things. There was a couple of schools that were added for device refresh that were also a little bit of an increase. Not massive, but a little bit. Classroom standardization, again, I spoke about the asbestos is one of those pieces. And I should probably just try to get up the screen so I can see a little bit better so I don't. I'm afraid my neck here. We've also added from feedback a second classroom language. One of the pieces of technology is voice amplification in every classroom. We've got some it's the only piece of technology that there's any research that just by implementing that, student improvement isn't impacted.
Okay.
A little fun fact. But feedback from teachers was, can we have a second mic? So either it can be passed around so students can use it, or so one can be charging while I'm using one, so I never run out of microphone. So not a huge expense, but it adds to it. The gear storage and cost, we were able to purchase a lot of our equipment, a lot of projectors, wireless access points, and we'll point out that we're able to negotiate contracts that on almost all of that equipment. The warranty, which is our standards of 5-year warranty, doesn't start until it's installed. So while we sit there for 3 years, that doesn't warranty on those. It's once we install the classroom, then the classroom. So if there are any concerns about that, I want to make sure we move that. The other piece in security and infrastructure, one of our main pieces of security that we support directly in technology is phones. We're changing our standard. We used to have a telephone on a teacher's desk, so we're shifting that and putting it by the entryway in every one of our classrooms, so there's no question where the phone is at. We were finding phones would be unplugged, in a consistent place, and heavens forbid, if this is the country we live in, if you have an active shooter, somebody better know where to get the phone and or there's a student has a medical emergency, where's the phone? That's our frontline of defense. So we're standardizing that. When we started to look at our gymnasiums to put a phone in the gymnasium, because the AV is not part of our scope in this bond, it's one of those ones we're looking at for the next bond because it's so unique, is we had a phone allocated, but the only box we could get, we had a box stuck out from the wall about 18 inches, super hard, easy on what could possibly go wrong.
Yeah, right.
So we're now rescoping that to a much narrower, so it's more of an emergency call button, where you hit it, you'll have one of two buttons to either make a phone call to the office really quickly, or hit, the emergency button, which creates a lockdown or a lockout for the school. So,
Don, since technology owns the phones, that's why this was added as part of the scope. It's not there's not any other physical security that tech is responsible.
no, we support the other physical security, like the video surveillance systems and the DVRs and the automated door locks. We support those because they sit on our network. We don't own those programmatically. The phones we own programmatically, and so that's why that is one of those. And then program administration, we need to think about it. I should definitely. There's a lot of translation. We need to think about that. We don't have access to. And we wanted to make sure that each site had signage. It's minor, but
It's not minor, trust me.
but we do have reduced scope. Our replacement on the next slide talks about we're not doing full implementation for ERP. That was never really doing the business readiness, organizational readiness, business modernization process. As a matter of fact, we just scared the dickens out of our entire OSM team, talking about how we're going to manage systems with a new ERP. It was unrelated because we want to make sure financials, like nobody wants to have anything to do with eBuilder. That is a sacred cow that it's not going anywhere. We just want to see it publicly on the public record. But we need to also understand in our business systems how money moves and how we can account for that and provide accurate reporting anytime. So we're digging into that very deeply right now. We're about 9 months, 27-month process to get us ready for the next launch and for funding to go out and actually make it procurement, hire an integrator, and then start that. So that's everything we're doing here. Device replacement, we've got our teachers, we've got our students. So our students, the question earlier, we provide one-to-one take-home devices for students in grades K through 12. We also provided 2-to-1 in cards at schools in students PK2. And actually, the ratio is a little bit higher than that. The idea being that students in those grade levels should be partner sharing with the device, working together, and not do a take-home. Don't want to increase their screen time as much. And then a number of devices for assistive technology. Not all of our licensed teachers, their devices, or administrators as well. And this year, because of this, we will be able to roll out for the first time. We're in the process right now, all of our paraeducators and educational assistants in our classrooms who have never had a device, checking on resources, getting to curriculums that teachers are using. We'll be deploying those. Now, it's not brand new devices necessarily. We purchased directly from the cloud and pretty up for the prices because of the one-to-one program and because of the so that's not something Portland has historically done. It's largely been a school or defined devices for schools.
Talked about it a ton. Supply chain. Chromebooks were a hot ticket item in the pandemic. They were very hard to get.
And
So
it still remains a pain.
okay.
We were fortunate. We have a very good partner in CTL for this round. So the 10,000 devices we ordered, and we didn't get our order in. We were talking about it back in February because we had to dip into contingency with those pieces up to get that order in. We didn't get it in until May, but they had been holding for us. They put a place where I said, look, we're going to get this many. And they did. So we will get those. They're not all going to be here until September, but that's still a far cry from the 18 months we were looking at for large orders back in the day. But that's because it's a great relationship and they took our work. We started putting those markers in place.
Those will be in addition to the 51,960 devices currently deployed.
Well, yes. And some of those will be sitting there. Those aren't going to be deployed immediately, but we want to make sure new student shows up, the school has a device, the device gets broken, we have something that we can replace it while it's repaired over the next 3 years of what we consider this life.
Yeah, that just struck me. That's like one Excel.
If you look at what we that are in the PBS infrastructure, some of them are really old and working hard.
2 jobs.
But they're still out there and they're still
CRT screen.
Do you feel like you have a better idea now? Like, yes, you see them come in and you need a device, you get lost and broken. Do you have like a rough estimate of for every 3, we know one is not going to make it to the end of the year or come back at the end of the year? Like,
we're seeing in there's a little context to that question.
yeah, I'm sure.
I will say our one-to-one program, because of what COVID, the kind of corner that COVID pushed us into, and not knowing this time last year, we weren't certain if we were going back in person or if we were going to go back in person for a little bit and go back to remote learning. So we had to push one-to-one as soon as we got the devices. We had them all rolled out by mid-October. One-to-one, take it without all the 18 months of prep that those schools do, like policies, different practices, your training managers, setting all of that personal change management stuff, pieces around that, we didn't have that. We've gotten some of that over the year. So looking at like our about 18% breakage rate last year, I think that's going to be high. But I'm talking to schools teaching across the country, and even ones that have done all of those preemptive pieces, we're still looking at a 12 to 17% lost and damaged rate on devices that they were seeing on students, just because of the way the last 3 years have been. It's just been, and it's like watching the driver. People laws are broken, but kind of out the window. It's filtering all the way through all of the behaviors across society. Maybe.
5,000 kids.
So that's the device replacement. This is what we've done. That's what we're working on. Here's some lovely pictures of seeing them in action. There's teachers that have their devices, students that are working with their devices, just trying to put some of that cute You can see all of, if you look at those photos, every one of our combos that we hand out there have the PPS logo and say property of public schools. So we have gotten quite a few calls from our school district.
The P stands for.
Town sheriff, or other places like, hey, we got, because as soon as they go missing and we know they're missing, we lock them and they're useless.
Yeah.
So then people just kind of drop them off wherever and we get them back. Part of Classroom tech, I'm not going to read all of this to you, but the intent is increased wireless. Half of our schools still only have wireless access points in the hallway. In 2022, that to me that still is egregious. We've got to fix that. The other half that don't, most of those wireless access points were put up 12 years ago as part of a grant because we didn't operationalize how we were going to support it. So they're running at less than standard speeds, even so. If it weren't for our school modernization, our infrastructure in our classrooms would be pretty horrible. And our tech smart schools, because some of those that we've done recently have helped that. So we're going to do this through all of our levels. So yes, all 81 schools, even our modernized schools, like we've gone through Roosevelt here, it was one of the first schools we did. We replaced their teaching, their compute in the classroom. We didn't do our projectors because those were still serviceable, HDMI, we're leaving that alone. We will do things in, there's a couple of things in Franklin that we've got to do, but it's been almost 4 years for some of these schools, it's been 5 years for some of these schools. Just so that we can make sure we have the same playing field across every one of them. Irritating, that's what we're going to need. We're going to start the protection from her with no wires. That's irritating.
Wow, 21st century.
All of those things. So I give you all of the detail. This is what we're doing. This is what's happening in our classrooms. It's hard to see. There's kind of some shoddy pictures, but we're so early. We don't have a great aspect. We'll love to take you to one of our schools when it's all completely done and say, this is what it looks like. Here's what voice amplification does. And for the teachers, because they don't feel like they have to project. They can now just talk. That's a game changer. I recommend to a classroom teacher. That kill that. Network infrastructure, all of our phone systems are upgraded. We have all of the new handsets out there. We're deploying as part of classroom modernization. More of those conference phones. There's a few stragglers, but we've got them all purchased and going. And now it's just moving through. We have done a lot of our security pieces. We still have some internal firewalls. I think that 1% is correct. Done a security audit. It's created a security roadmap. We're working forward on that. This year we'll be working on, right now, I think the 2 weeks we've been over for secure environment. We're looking at the environment. So that's a huge step forward. That and then the removal of administrative rights on everybody's individual sheet. That's going to take some time because do you see the look she just gave me? Did you see that? People are used to getting in and install whatever they want. We have
years ago.
We'll have a plan for that. People will still be able to install the software they need. It'll just take it after cost and a little bit. It's such a massive security gap. It's got
Huge.
So, and with ransomware being a $53 billion a year and 58% of it targeted at K-12 districts, we can.
Wow.
I was curious about that.
I think moving on, this is the ERP, everything operationally, all of our bills, hires our folks, retains them, provides capital improvements back to some degree in conjunction with already in place project management systems, budget publishing, all of those things. But a great example of how we can do this is we have a hard time right now because our current systems kind of come together saying, how many FTE did we have last year? How many did we have this year? Where did those changes in FTE occur? You would think that would be a pretty simple report to run. Our ERP is resolved with 21,000 customizations and not full implementation of any of those modules. So it's a lot of manual moving data out here, moving it out here, and then let's see what we can find. And it depends on what time of year. Right now it's a high hiring time, so you have to account for that. New systems can account for those types of things, but we have to. So there's a way like our business organization building this system. And then the last one I think is we're again focusing on organizational readiness and talk about that. Administration and our budget. Those are that's what's going on there. So people keep track of the progress of where the school sites at and following we talked about, because of the order, that's the warehouse space issue. 63% of those city warehouses. And they've been great partners.
Hope they get lots of insurance.
What's that?
Hope they have lots of insurance.
They do. They sure. There's a good insurance policy for all of this. Because that was, God, what first comes down. What happens? So, resources is the last page. Any questions? We do they help us to develop a series of dashboards. Website. It keeps updated on where we're at. It kind of provides a live view of our chances of working this. Not 42 minutes. I didn't even take
Nice job. Nice job.
That's really nice of them.
But to answer the question from last time, there is a lot going on. I know there's no ability to represent it, but there's a lot happening in there, and we are absolutely not only doing what we said we're going to do, but a little bit more where we can.
Similar to curriculum, got a massive amount of work that you're doing, and it's really important. And thank you for your efforts.
One additional update for us, though, it has nothing to do with
Okay.
but it fits into this, is we just finalized redundant for all US schools and actually for all the school districts in the metro region. Of single point of contact that gives us 100 gigabit backbone and 10 gigabits between garage and 40 gigabit. So dark fiber means there is no rate limit. It will go as fast as the electronics understand. So it's a massive upgrade for what the construction and what the nothing to do with the bond. Massive 5-year capital effort in conjunction with our ESD to plan this and get it built out and coordinate with modern schools because that was some. Thank you. And I just like to share that we're right here.
So,
Okay. You have some questions?
well, I don't know if I have a question, but I have a comment. Because you folks are so different from everything else we're doing on this committee that we understand, one thing I might ask the next time is to have the sentences, if they are short, of what the bond said we would do with the money for those two programs. I think you're doing great work, but I don't really know if we're supposed to kind of oversee, I don't know what was in that bond.
Yeah, so mine was
Did you
actually
say
in my
that?
slide, yeah, that's
So I should have paid attention. You did, right there. Thank you. You did a great job. I'm like a student. I don't really look at it. I'm sorry, what's that? Right, I know. You want to have, right. So if somebody would ask you, you'd say, yeah, it's in the bond. It's in the bond. Yes. Okay.
Actually send you the link.
Well, she did, and I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay, because I keep thinking about what our role is, and you guys are doing great work, and it's going to be wonderful when it's done. And I'm trying to, aside from telling us that, what's our role, And because typically our role is, well, let's see here, you had $53 million a budget, you're now at 71, that looks so good, but you got other funds, you've got another 17 million, so now you're back to being within budget again. So it's okay. That's all. That's good job.
Scope, schedule, and budget, I guess, are
Kind of our
three.
kind of guys. Okay.
I was gonna say, but I like, because I do this all the time, I'm like, I view it the exact same way. So I was gonna say, like, from July of last year when we did this, you did your first presentation, and even since January, I'm like, this is overwhelmingly more transparent than it has been before, because you have like answers to the questions, and like you understand, like, I'm asking about Chromebooks because, like, is that going to affect your schedule? I want to know how many break, because as you think about the future, like, how much contingency are you building in? And it sounds like 12 to 18%. So like I'm hearing the right things in terms of scope, schedule, and budget.
I guess that's right, because we did add people to the committee that had expertise in those areas, which we don't. So that's
Like,
more.
the minute I
I
started,
think it's good.
the minute I started looking at the budget, I had like 5 questions, and then I read Don's presentation, and I walked in, and I was like, so you basically answered like 4 of my 5 questions in just your additional material. So
And I will be real transparent with you from my seat, is I've been in front of plans before, not this large, and not with this much scrutiny, and so this is my first, well, it was very different accountability in my last district that I went through upon that I had to acknowledge for, and didn't have to do this, and so I'm learning how to do this with you as we're going through this as well.
Yeah.
This is a new process for me. Also, old hat for them, that's why they do it so well. They're very experienced and very knowledgeable with this. I'm building my muscles as we go. So,
And we're learning what you're looking for on these different materials as well. So, Mary and Don asked us, what they should put in their presentations. And I said, well, in general, they want to know what the scope, schedule, and budget was at the start, and what's changed, and why, and how far you've progressed in getting there.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I really couldn't give them a lot of guidance.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think we need you to tell us what types of things you're looking for in their next set.
well, I think one thing based on language that I think is more consistent is like, I didn't know where contingency lived either. So knowing that that's in tech program admin, and maybe just like a star or something underneath where it's like the contingency lives here, like that could be helpful, because you don't see it anywhere else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to keep it away from everybody else in the district. Well, this is still public record. It should probably not.
It's really the same.
So I have a question. I'm trying to understand the ERP, where we started out with 11 million budget, and then now we for some reason it's been reduced to 3.5 million, and we found 3 million in other funding, according to this. But we're projecting it's going to be 14. So can you refresh my memory how that came?
I could try. And
Yeah.
there's some interesting, I'm gonna look to Marina, because there has been some financial things that I don't understand how finances work.
Yeah.
Things, as we go through this and realize, oh, all of that pre-planning work, this is not compensable, this is not compensable, this is not compensable. And there were some things done that were outside of my purview.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. It's like, okay, the 3 million, not unlike what happened with the
Right.
curriculum. Some of this isn't compensable.
So
What?
Do you want my slide?
Oh, you're getting it now too, huh?
Slide 4 chairs over.
But
Keep going.
Go the other way.
There you go. There you go.
So
Sheet over by
with
10.
the ERP system,
Check it in.
compensability relies on the ability to capitalize the assets.
Right.
These assets, but the ERP system is not a direct asset, it's an
Right.
indirect asset.
Right.
And that has very specific capitalization rules to it. So one of the challenges with the ERP system is that all the discussion about what type of system you might need, going out researching different systems, all that sort of thing is not actually capitalized for. And that was a nuance that I think was not maybe very clear until after the measure passed. So at that point, a decision was made to identify other things within the other technology projects that were principal, like Chromebooks, adding additional Chromebooks to utilize the bond money to capitalize on plans. And to free up the money that would have been spent on those items in general fund to be available for this sort of pre-work that occurs on the ERP system. Once Don's group decides on an ERP system and they go to implement it, that work is commenced. So we've been doing some shifting in close coordination with finance and understanding what the compensable limitations are to allow them to form project pieces that are compensable and to be able to use the funds that are set aside for technology on compensable technology assets that
Okay. Okay, that makes perfect sense. I get that, and I appreciate you reminding me. So the 14 million that's forecasted, how much of that is anticipated to be compensable versus non-compensable?
Believe it's somewhere in that 2 to 3 million is all of that. That would be compensable for.
So the majority of the 14 million is non-compensable. Okay. So in other words, this isn't really going to be drawing down $10 million from the bond program because majority of it's non-compensable to begin with. Okay, so that's a good thing to understand, because if you didn't understand that nuance, one would say,
Yeah, what do you?
what's going on here? So thanks for clarifying that.
Budget, so something's 21 million under.
Yeah, I mean, when you see big swings like that, it raises a red flag. But I also knew that that kind of planning is probably not capitalized anyway. So I just wanted to get that clarified. So thank you both for clarifying that as well. So
It's good.
It's another 10 million to spend elsewhere.
exactly.
Oh, here,
Yeah.
I have a question that I don't even think I want to open my mouth and ask.
Oh yeah, you better
I'm
now.
going to. And I think it's probably a question for Marina and Dan. How does the curriculum and technology projects affect the business equity utilization, or does it at all?
It does not at all.
Oh, fantastic! That's the only answer I need to hear.
Yeah, the administrative directives related to this are specific to certain types of procurements related to design and construction.
Awesome.
So,
That's
to the
lovely.
extent that Don has some construction work, we are tracking
Yeah.
construction work, but things like technology purchases it does not apply to that type of procurement.
So I am curious though. It's like, and I realize it's different because you're mostly buying manufactured products. It's not like a contract. You don't have as much contractor where they're doing installation. But I am curious as to, is there business equity in the IT sector, or is it all?
Do you want me to answer that question, Don?
He's actually worked very hard to improve equity in his procurements.
We are trying,
Yeah,
but the reality, the hard.
Yeah.
We work very hard, and I've been in touch with a lot of different organizations in the area, trying to find not only from the bottom, just hireability.
right.
And looking at that, I feel I will say this. I feel very proud that my department is almost 44% women in my department, which you don't find in any other technical organization. Because we're very intentionally trying to find and go out and hire people that have the skills, and we're looking for people of color and women intentionally. We beat the bush when we went out for our vendors for our construction efforts and made sure every one of those low voltage contractors and low voltage construction firms that had any ties to communities of color and led and we have very few applicants. There's not a lot.
So I have since we're on the subject, I've spent a lot of time on this topic, my former life. One of one of the things that I know the contractors started looking at was not just who they were hiring subcontract, but how did their own organization look? And so we kind of, I think we were moving in the direction where we were looking at not only what are your goals, but what does your organization look like, and what are you doing for business equity? Are there any kinds of opportunities, so when you're purchasing equipment, when you're making those purchases, that you're asking those kinds of questions, or you're factoring that into your decision making as to what's this company's
You do look for those opportunities, but it's also very interesting in organ purchasing models. It's and K-12 in specific, and to our school board and to our bosses, you got to get the best possible price too. And so that means you're going to a large vendor, and a lot of the things that I'm purchasing are very large vendors.
Yeah, but you know, the construction industry made that argument years ago. Same thing, low bid, best price, we can't afford these guys. But, you know, it's changed.
Uh-huh.
And it just seems like some industries are getting a pass for the same excuses that our industry did years ago. And so I'm just saying, if you're really serious about social equity, it's got to be across the board. It can't be, oh, you're excused because of this. And this is just my opinion.
No, but what I'm saying is, the reality is, for me to go out and find somewhere that can deliver me 50,000.
Understand? They're not there. But if you're not asking the questions of these companies.
And we are, like our division 2627
Right.
is a small firm, local, that is led by I don't know that they're registered as their own, but they are, there is no
Right. Anyway,
that's important.
I'm just saying that if we're really serious about this, it's got to be in anything we think
We've
about.
got to think about it everywhere.
Yeah.
Look at where do we construct the system? Where do we find those systemic inequities? And can we move those?
And you know, and I've learned that businesses will respond to their clients.
That's
But if their clients aren't asking for it, they're not going to do anything about it. And so you have some influence. You may not be initially, but over time, if enough clients are asking these same questions and expectations, you'll start changing the industry as well.
How many thoughts do I have on this? Like a lot. Like the percentage of women in tech has only declined steadily since 1982 to be at a whopping 24%, which has literally not only not changed in my working career, but in my entire lifetime. And then like you then exacerbate this for like all the teachers. I mean, it's a systemic issue that you just like can't get around. Like the teachers are men, they go to college, like you drop out in 6th grade because like science isn't cool for girls. You go to college, like you're like one of 4 women.
Yeah.
Like, I lived under this assumption coming from the South that I would come out to Oregon, this very progressive state, and I was going to be like 50-50 women split in this room in this tech industry, and it just continues to be the only one. And then you really are like, because I found this too, because we're private sector and we could buy from whoever we wanted.
Yep.
Like you tell Microsoft, hey, until you have a 50-50 split of men and women, we're not going to buy from you, and they're like, okay. Good luck.
See you later.
Yeah.
Have fun. Go to IBM. They also don't have a 50-50 split. So like the challenge, like you have to try to figure that out with smaller vendors. And then in IT, if you're taking like this risk, then you're creating technical debt. And so like it gets really, really hard. And I agree with you completely that we like have to like push the issue, but like they're pushing it from the top at the big dogs, and you're just like you're not seeing it. Like it just does not happen.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong. I applaud what you're doing, but I'm just. It's always been. I saw it with my own organization. There was kind of this double standard, and the one that really used to upset me is whenever we were allowing a private contractor to come in and develop the land, they didn't have to follow any of the rules. They got a pass. And I was like, well, my God, if we could make a much bigger impact if we require this for everybody we're working for, not just the people we contract directly. It drove me crazy because we were talking out of both sides of our mouth.
Don does it better than most, and I will say, like, I've had the opportunity to speak for PPS, like as a panelist at a PPS event.
Yeah.
And like my friends who have high school girls were like, oh my gosh, we're going to this because like Kara's talking and
Yeah.
she's like, you know, I'm going to call myself a girl. She's a girl too. And like, it's cool to be nerdy.
Yeah.
And like, unfortunately, like, that is just like I don't know how to get around that reality, but it's why I don't work in private sector tech anymore. It's just,
It's still pretty,
it's just like,
well, anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. but-
I know Don will find some small vendors
Yeah.
that he can use and I'll help it.
For curriculum, a lot of our like world languages are smaller vendors.
Yeah. Yeah.
I should say and it's obviously very different. For like our 6 through 12 language arts curriculum, they had recommended titles which were very Eurocentric,
Yeah.
very like now they did not fit what we wanted for our students. We want them to closely represent our students, our diversity of students. So we said, we're not buying your books, we're gonna buy them. So, sorry. So,
Then you go to Florida.
and we told them that, yeah,
Yeah.
we told them that, we're like, you're supposed to not represent our students, we're not gonna buy them. So we're gonna buy our own novel sets that really reflect our students, and they know why we're not.
Yeah.
There you go. Mary's fixing the systemic changes. No big deal.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, and you know, Huntington rules also are problematic as well, because you can easily get challenged if you're not following the rules. So it's not easy. I get it. I've been there. I've done it. But it starts at the top. The leadership has to really push this down and get creative if you want to make a difference. The other piece to it as well is the pipeline. So to your point, oftentimes, as much as you'd like to buy, there aren't any opportunities because there just isn't a market. I mean, we face that same challenge in construction. There's only so many women and minority-owned businesses that we're all competing for, and it's the same dilemma. So the idea it's not just about setting goals and structure. It's how do you build a pipeline? How do you get and how do you enable these businesses to be successful? So that's another piece, but most agencies struggle with that piece because that's not easy. And it's hard to justify money towards it and whatnot. But, all right, I'll get off my soapbox. I'm fairly passionate about this, you noticed.
Very happy.
Okay,
Where are we?
but nonetheless, great job on what you've done. That's a lot to accomplish. I'm just amazed that many Chromebooks. That's like, that is impressive. It really is. Yeah.
There's a reason why schools choose Chromebooks, because we can manage them.
Yeah.
Those are Windows devices.
Oh, yeah.
Our getting updates.
Anyway, that's impressive.
4,000 kids with Chromebooks. What could go wrong?
Yeah. No, it was impressive.
Okay.
Great job. Thank you.
So our next meeting,
Yes.
September 28th,
Uh-huh.
Good copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect.
we look forward to bringing you the modernization updates.
Excellent.
So since you brought it up, in light of the challenges we had leading up to this meeting, I thought we'd take a few minutes and let the benefit of the members who are here to share any thoughts or comments or specifics that we'd like to see at the next meeting. So now you have plenty of time to prepare or tell us, no, I can't do that, whatever the case may be. So with that, is there?
No, because I haven't thought about it.
Well, I know, and I should have warned you, but
Email you next week.
and that's
I didn't hear. I definitely want to hear. What was the next meeting's
So-
topic?
It's on school.
Modernizations.
right.
Like modernizations.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have one thought. I was looking through all the audit
Yeah.
updates, and I thought, well, probably wouldn't hurt to maybe talk about some of these, help clarify a little better, maybe for the benefit of the new ones. And I'm thinking, geez, we have a 2012 audit, and we still have a couple of outstanding items that we haven't implemented.
Yeah,
Are those items just, we haven't got around to them, or is it's not as simple as it might sound? Kind of
Is this update? It's in the packet here. This with the audit.
Yeah. Yeah, which was very helpful. But I was just wondering if it was worth creating an opportunity for folks to, between now and then, if you have any questions or comments, that you got a few minutes to address some of these outstanding audit issues. I know that the 2020 audit, that was all focused on business equity, so those are obviously still in process. But I was looking at some of the older ones, thinking, well, we should get these probably wrapped up pretty soon. Been 10 years almost. Just a thought. And then I think you already answered my question. So we will see a consolidated budget of Benson, so we can see what you're actually managing to, as opposed to how we have to report it because of e-billers.
Yes, and as we've said before, when we do it with the programs, we do it by on vision.
Yeah,
But when we do the project status updates, that is by project budget, regardless of the funding source.
right.
So that's where we have to kind of make those distinctions in order to report that on
Yeah, I understand that, but it's hard to look at two different budgets to understand what the budget really is, and so we appreciate you presenting it that way. That would be very helpful.
And I guess 2020, this will be the first meeting where we talk at all about schedule on the 2020 projects. Like Jefferson, you know, and I know we haven't spent any money, but if you put together a schedule on where,
We did do a presentation.
you know, where was it? Yeah, and I was gone though.
Oh, you missed it?
That's my fault.
You can
Look
they'll
at
send you
it.
the video if you want to watch it.
Okay.
And I think we did do it, one of the first standard status of the sheets, because we hadn't spent anything.
I haven't spent anything, right?
Just a regular presentation, but it did us schedule. This time around, we will actually have that status of the sheet that'll look like the rest.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, so your benefit, there was Marina. I'd asked her to, for the benefit of the newer members, to kind of talk about what was the basis for the Jefferson budget. So they did that, and then the design team came in and talked about how they're approaching the planning. But you can watch it on the website if you want to get up to speed.
Okay.
Anything else that's on people's minds? I think Dan, no?
Recruitment.
Dan already shared with me about recruitments, so that's going to get underway.
Yeah, hoping in the next few weeks to get the open recruitment out for new BAC members. Put a big push on for September, getting out to our partners and just out in the public who might be interested. We have the electronic application, and so get a big recruitment push out in September, wrap it up by the end of the month, and see who's interested in becoming an BAC member.
Yeah.
Have them on board next couple.
Great.
Okay.
Is there anything that talks about skill sets? I mean, is there a description of what you're looking for in a recruitment anywhere?
The chart, talks a little bit about, wanting to see kind of a mix of background and expertise. The application has some specific categories of experience in construction. If you have background in technology or curriculum, whatever it is, and then there's also other. What else is there that's relevant?
Now that you mention it, I remember reading that. Yeah. But it'd be great to find like an architect or somebody that's one of the positions.
Right. Exactly. If you're working. Right.
Right. But out of all the architectural firms in Portland, there's only a handful that are really doing and pursuing this work really on, I can think of, you know, a lot of firms that I'm familiar with that just don't pursue public works or public schools particularly. They're good firms, but just for a reason they're focused on different market sectors.
And I'm not, not sure what Kenichi's status is, whether she's going to be able to continue. But I thought she was a great add to because of her background, her focus on women businesses and that perspective. So I think we still want to have kind of that mix like we had before. So we don't. It's not just all about construction. That we have other folks that kind of bring a different perspective and expertise as a good balance. Still, I think is important.
Yeah, and we'll connect with some of our partners like Awami and Mac and
Yeah.
as well. We've had a preliminary conversation with the already.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, Ross.
So and then the next quarterly update to facilities and operations then will be in October.
It would be, well, our last one was June. It was June.
But we won't. The reason I'm asking is because we have this meeting in September. Logically, it would be September, but normally we have 2 meetings that we report on at one, and then just 1 meeting we report it on the other quarters.
I think October makes sense. The committee is not stood up yet. They have an annual cycle of the committee.
Oh,
So there's no board leadership turns over the beginning of July. Then they go through and do committee assignments. And then as soon as they identify who's on the committees and who's the chair, I staff this committee and I meet them. And we set schedules and agendas. So hoping to do that here very soon.
so realistically, we probably couldn't do it in September anyway.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. So just an FYI, I'm gone for a couple weeks in October. So
Where are you off to?
Hawaii for a wedding.
Good virtual.
It's true.
All in.
Can do virtual.
I could.
Yep.
I can come for that.
I've done speeches in like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I did one